I'll begin my speech. Good evening, everyone. My name is Jerome Evans, and I'm one of the co-chairs of the Public Health Advisory Committee. I believe we do not have a co-chair, another co-chair right now, but Margaret is making the rounds, and we are on a full court press to get another person here. Before we begin, I'd like to note that this meeting includes the remote participation of members as authorized under Minnesota statutes section 13D-021 due to the declared local health pandemic. I will now call this meeting to order and ask Hattie to call the roll so that we may verify the presence of a quorum.
Okay, Terry Ann Jones.
Present.
Mary Pike.
Present.
Kozar Mohammed.
She might not be here yet. Yeah, she usually ends up coming late.
Lisa Nakotra.
Here.
Anna Arkin. Anna Arkin. Alicia Jackson.
Present.
Jerome Evans.
Present.
Andrew Crook. I don't think I saw him yet. Andrew Crook. Britt Culp.
Present.
Sawad Salad.
Present.
Meredith Martinez.
Present.
Twee Kim.
Present.
Babette Apland.
Present.
Aaron Hurley is not going to be with us tonight. Is that right, Margaret?
Right. Yeah, I just got an email from him.
Anjali Punjabi. Kozar Mohammed. Andrew Crook. Anjali. Okay, well, we have 10, so we have quorum.
Wonderful. Thank you, Hattie. Next, we're going to move into the adoption of the agenda and the acceptance of the minutes. We do that in one roll call. So let me ask, does anyone have any questions on the agenda or on the minutes from last month? Well, I should reopen my little browser so I can see. Oh, Lisa's your hand up?
Yeah, I think I emailed Margaret already about this, but it says on the minutes that I was present last month at last month's meeting and I was not. So that's the only discrepancy I have.
We just felt like you were there in spirit.
Perhaps I was. I remember it was snowing that day.
Don't bring that up. You were no longer there.
Are there any other questions on the minutes or agenda? If not, then Britt, would you mind moving for accepting of the minutes and agenda as amended?
I would like to move for the acceptance of the minutes on the agenda as amended.
Awesome.
Is there a second?
I will second Alicia Jackson.
Well done, Britt.
Thanks, I practiced.
Take it away, Hattie.
Terry Ann Jones.
Approve.
Mary Pike. Mary, I don't, there you are.
Approved. Sorry.
Thank you. Kozar, are you here yet? Lisa Nakotra.
Approved.
Anna Arkin.
Approve.
Alicia Jackson.
Approve.
Jerome Evans.
Approved.
Andrew Crook. Britt Culp.
Approved.
Sawad Salad.
Approved.
Meredith Martinez.
Approved.
Twee Kim.
Approved.
Babette Apland.
Approved.
Anjali Punjabi. Oh, you are with us. Okay, good. All right, it's approved.
Wonderful. Lisa, your hand is still up, or it might be up again, and I don't know which one it is. Okay, it's down. So today we're going to have a special presentation from Margaret about approaching subcommittee work. But before that, we have a related kind of introduction question as we as a committee still figure out a way to navigate this virtual environment and still get to know each other just a little bit more, just a little bit better. I'm guessing this is going to be one of those surprisingly tough questions for people, especially this group, but we'll see. The question is, which best describes you? Listener, thinker, feeler, doer, or analyzer? And you can only pick one, which is where I think we're going to have the trouble. And then I'm going to copy and paste this into the chat so I do not have to repeat that 40 times. Oh, did you? Great, thank you.
Although it's in red, which is interesting.
I feel like I can make an acronym out of these and just call it Delft.
And who is who's on the phone with the last two digits, 21? Okay. While you figure out your phone number, person 21, Mary, you got your hand up.
Yes, I missed one, Jerome. Listener, thinker, doer, analyzer. What's the fifth one?
Feeler?
Excuse me?
Feeler.
Feeler, thank you.
Feels. Yeah. And it is in the chat, I believe. Okay, I'm gonna
in the chat. Okay, thank you.
all right, relax. It's okay. We're gonna skip the first person on my like list who is that phone number, and it's gonna go Alicia, Angeli, and then Anna. And so Alicia, Angeli, and then Anna. I'll go first and say that I am a doer, and I will present that without commentary or additional talking, which would have been my second. Alicia.
Analyzer for sure. I do analysis for a living. So that's me.
Okay. Angeli, then Anna and Babette.
Sure. So I would say doer. And then we're not supposed to give any commentary, or we are? I
Sorry, I won't give any commentary. Sorry.
Oh, small commentary. I just like to get things done with good people and do good work.
Awesome. Anna, Babette, and then Britt.
This is so hard, and sorry, I'm having technical difficulties, so I can't change my name to add my last name, and I can't turn on my video. But I can see the chat, so thanks, Margaret. And I'm buying time because I'm thinking. So I guess I'll go with thinker.
That's great. Babette, Britt, and then Lisa Nicotra.
Yeah, this one's pretty easy for me. I think I am a doer, and I really like creating new initiatives and new approaches.
Britt, Lisa, Mary.
I honestly wish I was as much of a doer as you guys, because it's like I get started and then ADHD. I think I do best with being a thinker because my wheels are always turning and I like to think of solutions to offer. But of course, as I said with my ADHD, if I don't start a task like right as I'm thinking of it and other people don't take it over, it just kind of fizzles out and dies, unfortunately. So strengths and areas of growth there.
Sure. We've all got those. We've all got both. Lisa, Mary, and Meredith.
I am also a doer, and when I have time, I like to think and analyze.
Nice. You really slide those in there, huh? Mary, Meredith, and then Margaret.
Hi, I'm definitely a doer.
That was the most confident doer. Yeah, that was really good. That was good. Meredith, Margaret, and then Swad.
Well, I think I'm the first to say this, but I am a very strongly in the feeler category. So I maximize through relationships. That's what I do. So, yep.
Awesome. Okay, and then we've got Margaret, Suad, and Terry Ann.
Okay, yes, it's my turn.
And your question.
You would have thought I would have had an answer for you by now. I'm gonna go with listener.
Nice, that was deliberate, very deliberate. Oh, my list just refreshed itself. So let's see how this goes for the rest of the time. Suad, Terry Ann, and then, oh, we have a guest. Is it Pao or Poe? P-A-O.
Yes. Hi, I'm Paul, the new Health Equity Manager.
Awesome. Pal, you're coming up in 3 people. Suad, you're first.
Okay. I was between thinker and feeler. If I have to go with one, I'll just go with thinker.
Okay. Terry Ann, Pal, and then Twee.
Hi, everybody. So my baseline instincts are always put me to analyzer. However, I have trained myself to be all of the above when needed.
Nice. And then welcome, Pal. In case you joined late or didn't hear the question when we first started a few minutes ago, the question is, which best describes you? And you only get to pick one. Would you consider yourself to be a listener, thinker, feeler, doer, or analyzer?
Yeah. Hello, everyone. I would definitely consider myself a thinker. I like to think a lot and deeply about even just one question, because I think one thing always leads to so many things, impacts, and everything relates to each other and interconnects.
Awesome. More to come from you a bit later on the agenda. That's Twee, Hattie, and then Noya.
All right, so true to my introverted ways, I am going to say I'm a listener, and I really enjoy doing that and connecting the dots and learning about myself by listening to other people.
Wonderful. And Hattie and then Noya.
So by day, there used to be a show in the 80s called Fraggle Rock that I just loved, and they had doozers. So I prefer the term doozers. So I'm a doozer by day and an overthinker by night.
Okay. I'm into it. Noya, did you hear the question? Awesome.
Yes, I did. Noya. And I'm a get her done kind of gal, so doer.
I agree with that. Well, thanks, everyone. That was fun. I enjoyed it. Margaret, I think you are next on the agenda, and our self-designations will somehow relate to your presentation.
It's true. They will. All right, let me share my screen. Put it in slideshow. There we go. All right, so this part of our meeting has actually been born out of several different conversations that I've had with committee members, and then also with other people in the department who are working with other advisory committees. And so I thought this might be a good, again, kind of level setting opportunity for us to talk about, we've got these 3 big priorities, and how do we actually proceed? We've broken up into subcommittees, and each subcommittee has big topics underneath it, and people are starting to converse about that, as well as maybe gel around, some potential actions. And so I thought this was a good opportunity for us to talk about, like, what are some of the building blocks that you kind of need as a subcommittee and maybe even as a committee, to sort of move into action. So I came up with several different kinds of building blocks that are really helpful to consider as we move forward. One of those is team cohesion. So spending some time getting to know each other is a really helpful task, as well as a way to make sure that everybody is aware of what are your strengths. That's why we did the exercise that we did. What is it that you're actually bringing to the table that will be able to plug into those priorities, maybe in different ways? What mindset do you have when you approach a task or a project? So are you an idea generator? Do you have all the creative energy? Are you the big picture thinker? Are you the planner, the person who sort of picks things apart and, builds it back up together and helps create some steps that you're going to take? Are you the doer, like, hey, give me an assignment or cut me loose and I'm ready to go? Are you the listener and so you contribute as you're moved to? Every team kind of needs a rethinker or maybe an evaluator. It's like, are we sure that we're going the right way? Let's just stop, pause for a moment and make sure that, yes, in fact, the actions that we're taking are going to move us forward. Some people are natural leaders of the pack. That is a place where I often either find myself or I am chosen to be that person, which isn't always where I might always want to plug myself in. Some people are the cleanup crew. They are really good at the refining, the editing, the what are the loose ends, that are kind of hanging out there that need to get either folded in somewhere or they need to end up on the cutting room floor. We're not going to address those things. And some people are really excellent wordsmiths or writers. And it's good to just talk about that with each other to identify those strengths. And of course, we all know that we're really kind of a mix of these things. And I loved who answered it. Oh, Terry Ann did, of saying, I've learned to be these things over the years and I can tap into them as I need to. So when I guess actually I want to go back for one more second because there's a point that I want to make about this team cohesion, is that really there's additional benefits. One is that spending some time getting to know each other is actually value added to the work. So it's value added to your subcommittee, it's value added to yourself, it's value added to how you feel about how you're working together. And the other thing is that it allows you as a subcommittee to kind of understand, oh, what are some of the actions or some of the skills that people bring together that are going to be a natural match? And what are some of those things that are going to, maybe cause us to stretch a little bit? But every one of us has to be kind of in that mix so that we can move the work forward. So it's not just one type or another that actually is successful at doing the work. So the next building block is really about kind of your process. Again, going back to the main point, which is, we're talking about some very huge topics that have complex parts. How are you thinking about this area? Are you creating a shared understanding? My guess is that each of us understand these things from different experiences, different knowledge bases, maybe different work that we've done before on these particular areas. So talking about how do you understand this work is, again, a way for you to get yourselves kind of organized around what the work actually is going to look like. And that brings up the next question, is that it's like, okay, so how are you going to organize yourselves around the subcommittee work? You know, how are you approaching it? How are you, like, where are you going to begin? Do you even know yet where you hope to end? Are you going to maybe identify a person or two that could be like kind of the point people, so that as questions come in to me, or maybe there's questions that go to Jerome, maybe there's questions that go to Hattie, you know, you can actually have kind of a point person that not everybody needs to receive every single email unless that's what you want. So again, spending that time within your subcommittee talking about how are we going to actually organize around the work so that we're most effective and most efficient in finding out what we can do, or what questions we have. And another kind of task in organizing is sort of who is tracking the actions of the subcommittee, who's tracking, like who's got what assignments, are those things completed, are there places where, again, outreach is needed to figure out what we're going to be doing, or ideas about presenters, or ideas about learning, you know, so who's kind of tracking some of that stuff, because that's really helpful, almost like having your own set of subcommittee minutes that say, okay, so-and-so said they were going to do this, so-and-so said they were going to do that, and, you know, next meeting we're going to report back as to, you know, what we've learned about that. Another question, and these two are really related, is that sort of what's that arc, the shape of the work? You know, and I talked about it a little bit earlier, is that it's like, where do you begin and where will you hope to end? But it's also, what are the intervening steps or phases that are in between? Are you in a learning phase? Are you in kind of the discovery phase? Are you gathering resources? Are you ready to make some specific steps that you as a subcommittee or the committee itself can take? Are you in that place of analyzing? Okay, well, we've learned. Now, like, let's synthesize that so that we can develop a plan or a shared vision. The other thing about the arc of learning is that I find, and so this is really just a personal preference, is that it helps me to visualize what the shape of the work looks like by creating a visual. You know, okay, so here's the umbrella. These are all the spokes that come off of the umbrella. This is the thing that ties, you know, all of those spokes together. Here's all the raindrops that are going to, you know, it's like I need some sort of a visual to help me see this action is going to lead to this action is going to touch these different touch points, so that in the end we're going to, you know, have a something. Not everybody is a visual person, but it can be helpful to create something, you know, a visual, a chart, you know, a flow chart of what is going to, you know, happen from one step to the next. The other reason that I like a visual is because it allows you to sort of come back to that. You know, one of the things that we find out as we learn, and even as we do, is that it's like we got to kind of check back in with ourselves. Now we're learning more information. Now we're learning new information. And how are we folding that into the way that we approach these topics? So sometimes referring back to that visual gives you a chance to just say, oh yeah, like what we thought we were going to be heading towards is in fact the thing that we're heading towards. Or you find out, nope, we were not on the right track. And now that with our new information, let's tweak that so that we can fold that into what our work looks like. The other question that is really helpful to consider is this whole thing about learning, is what kind of learning is specific to you as a subcommittee that would be really helpful for you to become sort of those subject matter experts on this particular topic? And what is the important learning that the full committee does? Because one of the things that we know is that it's easy for us in a subcommittee, because you're more flexible, you're really more nimble than a full committee. Like, if you're going to get too far ahead of the full committee, how are you going to be coming back and making sure that the full committee is coming along with you? And that's a skill set that is, again, kind of circling back. Okay, we've learned this much. Now we need to go back to the full committee and explain to them, here's what we've done. Here's what we've learned. This is why it's important. Here's where we think we're going. And one of the things that we as a full committee could do is build in a process for the subcommittees to actually just give out a report. Maybe, I don't know, every other meeting, every few meetings, so that the full committee is aware of kind of the actions, the thinking, maybe even the questions that are coming up as you're discovering more about the particular topic area that you have in front of you. Ultimately, you know, if we get to the point that the action that we want to take is developing a set of recommendations, we want to make sure that when the full committee is looking at those recommendations and having to come to a vote, like, yes, this is what we're going to, yes, we're on board. Yes, we understand. You want to make sure that along the way that the full committee has been informed about what's going on and why it's important. The next one is kind of finding the way forward involves all of those like phases that we just talked about: learning, planning, the doing, the sharing the info, and the gathering information. So then what really are the resources that are available to you? And of course, first and foremost, we have each other. You know, we each have connections that are important. We have information, we have resources that are available to us. And oftentimes, unless someone specifically asks, you may or may not realize that what you know or what you have at your own fingertips is really important to share, that it could be useful. So make sure that you're including in your conversations just those kind of asks of each other. Well, who do you know? What do you know? What resources do you have that, you know, could be a part of this discussion? Of course, there's all kinds of, you know, webinars, articles, recorded presentations, you know, in written and spoken ways that you know, Google searches are amazing in that way. We also have talked a lot about inviting presenters. So presenters would really be those subject matter experts that would come to a meeting to provide information. And one of the things that we could even do is ask those presenters, well, what is it that you see as an important action that needs to be taken? And, or even more specifically, you know, what could the Public Health Advisory Committee actually do to help move this action or to address this gap? But those experts are really the people that will at times be able to provide some direction and maybe even some questions or identify some gaps that we haven't thought of, because they're the subject matter expert. You know, they're immersed in this work day to day and will be glad to have their opinion asked for, really, and they'll be glad to share that. The other other resources are your city council members. It's really important for us to keep in mind, you know, how we're apprising them of the work that we're doing, asking questions of them, you know, like, are there people that we should be talking to? You know, do you have an opinion about how the PHAC should approach this work? You know, that can be a little bit tricky because you want to make sure that, you're representing accurate information from, the committee, from the subcommittee. And so it's really good to make sure that when you're contacting city council members and sharing information with them, once we especially get to a point where there's maybe a specific set of recommendations that we're making, we'll want to make sure that department leadership is also part of that communication circle, because it becomes important for the department leaders to know that the work of the PHAC, which we're always blessed to have either the deputy commissioner with us, or in this case, the interim health commissioner with us in our meetings every single month. So it's really handy to have that department support right from the beginning. But don't hesitate, to really ask your city council member for information that they have, or that resources that they can point you to. In essence, like really, as you begin to kind of coalesce around these big topics, you really become kind of the funnel through which all of that information is going to be discussed, digested, disseminated. And, you keep in front of you that there's learning that's going to be necessary for you, but there's also going to be learning that's going to be necessary for the full committee. And that brings us to another building block, which is really, how do you prioritize? So if your resources are plenty, you've got everything that you need, you've done a bunch of learning, how are you going to prioritize, either what you want to share or who to invite as a presenter, or if we're going to host a panel discussion, who's part of that panel? So really, you want to ask yourself, what would your subcommittee or you as an individual hope for by asking for a presentation? And there's lots of different reasons that we do that, right? We may just want to raise our awareness. So what are the issues within this topic? They may relate to our priorities, but we will at least gain knowledge and be able to do something with that. We want more education on and learning, about this topic area, because, many of these topics have very complex parts. And so if we're going to really hone in on something that the PHAC has the ability to make changes or recommendations on, we need to know and pick apart some of those complexities so that we're sure that we're honing in on the thing that actually would make a change and make a positive change. Are you asking experts, for recommendations for action? And before we start, inviting people to come in and give us those presentations, these are the questions that, we want to ask ourselves. What's the goal of inviting this particular person to hear this particular information? What are we hoping to gain from that? And then what will we hope to, understand from that presentation that we can take forward to us? One of the things that was mentioned last month was this idea of intersectionality, which we know that there's intersectionality between a lot of these priority areas. As we move forward, I do think that that's an important topic for us to keep in mind, that thing about intersectionality. Can we find, sort of that sweet spot of where, this priority or that priority or a piece of that priority, actually kind of overlap and, fill in that sweet spot where by doing this one thing, we'll actually touch a number of those priorities. Are we inviting, people in to give a presentation because we're hoping to learn more about the potential for committee action? And that really is, what all of the sifting and all of the funneling is about, is that, eventually those grains of salt are going to drop out of the funnel, and we're going to be able to say, okay, we don't have the 5-pound bag anymore. We've sifted it, we've learned, we've, sorted, and now we're ready to actually, pick those few grains of salt that we're going to move forward on. And it's not that it's a this or that, because many of these topic areas, because of the multi-layered, uh, because they're multi-layered, we can be working on multiple things at once, but again, you don't want to be working on a 5-pound bag of salt. You want to really get it down to those grains that are manageable so that we can figure out what the work is, moving it forward. I want to emphasize in this last point the potential for committee action, because not everything that we learn, not every presentation that we hear um, is necessarily like our responsibility, for doing something about. We know that committee presentations come to us from different aspects. Sometimes the health department is looking for feedback, and so that may be a very particular kind of presentation that is received, and then we provide them the feedback, and then they go off and they take that feedback into consideration. Sometimes, again, it's a presentation that's really more for information and awareness raising. So one of the things that we may discover after we hear a presentation is that it's like, yeah, there's not really anything that we need to specifically do about this particular topic. It's just that, now we know. Now we know. And so we could help raise awareness with other groups or with other people that might be related to that area. And really committee action can take many different forms, from amplifying the message of somebody else. We hear a presentation from, a particular group, and then we don't necessarily have a part to play in active action, but by amplifying their message, by amplifying their plan, that could be our action. And then, of course, as we've talked about, we may ourselves decide that we're going to create some recommendations. So action is even a word that has multi-layers to it. So be sure that you're kind of thinking about that, as you continue forward. So really, there's these building blocks that are just helpful to get started. And I know we've met probably 3 significant blocks of time right now as subcommittees, but there is value in getting to know each other. There is value in developing some sort of a plan or a roadmap, a visual, an idea, phases, of what it is that you want to do going forward. There is value in learning. And sometimes, of course, that learning has to come before the actual doing, but there's also that value in recognizing what the doing is. It's also valuable to recognize the need to and the value of connecting others to your thinking. So that's that idea of, making sure that you're circling back, making sure that communication is clear, making sure that if there are big questions or if there's a big roadblock that comes up, that you say that. And it can come back to the full committee to discuss. Maybe it's a roadblock in getting certain information, and, Noya, me, others, within the department could be helpful in getting you connected to the things that would be most helpful for you. And I think, the other thing is that, especially for the doers in the crowd, it's always like, okay, well, let's do. Sometimes that path isn't always apparent, as you start down, kind of your meaty topics, is that it's like, well, there's so much to do. How are we going to actually sort of coalesce so that we come together as a team and, we figure out, like I said, those kind of grains of salt that we can pick up and run with. So sometimes it just takes a bit of time to actually see that a way forward will become apparent, and that you don't have to worry, about that, because I think because of the mix of skills that you bring to the table, because you ask good questions, because we have good thinkers, because we have good resources at our fingertips, you know, that path becomes a little clearer as some of those things, you know, kind of either get acted on or fall to the wayside. And yeah, so that's really what I wanted to share with you, because I did not want people to feel like there's so much inside of these priorities that it can feel a bit paralyzing, that there isn't a clear way forward. And so taking some of the time to actually exercise these kinds of building blocks, I think, make the work more enjoyable, because you've actually spent the time kind of working a plan together and recognizing the value that each of you bring to the topic area as well as to the full committee. Now, let me see if I can stop sharing. There we go.
Well, thank you, Mark. I think that was very helpful, very interesting, and it's I would anticipate a little bit of discussion after that. I did try to paste in the 2 questions. What one thing from Margaret's presentation stood out for you? And then the other question is, what would you add to these building blocks? But when I hit Control V, it came up as black. It was really weird looking. So thank you for doing that, Margaret.
You betcha.
I was like, oh, that's not useful. That's not a value add.
Let me see if I can get them numbered here.
We will, just like we did with the question ahead of Margaret's presentation, we will go through and we will ask the committee one thing that stood out and one thing that you would add to these blocks. I don't think that you have to respond to both or even one. You can always pass. This is a very low pressure exercise, except for the person on the phone with the last 2 digits 21, because you would be first on the list, and I do need to know who you are if I'm going to call on you. Otherwise, first, I should go backwards this time, huh? Okay. Noya, we would first ask you for your thoughts from that presentation. So we'll go Noya, then Hattie, and then Twee, changing things up.
Thank you, Jerome. When I looked at the agenda earlier and saw this item on the agenda, I wasn't sure what it was going to be. So this was a nice presentation, Margaret. Thank you. I think that it's a good way for people to think about the work of this group and how we can each contribute. And I think that that's important to recognize what each person individually brings to conversations and to the work. So I like how that kind of laid that out. And I don't know that I have anything to add.
Well, I think it really, for me personally, kind of shined a light on how other people think, which I found to be very useful. I know Noya and I are both doers, and so I was like, oh, let me say that before she steals my answer. Okay, Hattie, Twee, and then Powell.
I don't have a lot to say, pretty much what Noya said.
That's always a good way to go. Screw with Noya. She's legit. Twee, Powell, and then Terry Ann.
I really enjoyed this presentation. I found the team cohesion slide really useful. I like that it laid out all the individual roles. So sometimes we, think of group where we're like, okay, there's always a leader and then there are the followers. And those followers are never assigned a role or, appreciated for what they do. And I actually like that it laid it out.
Good insights. Pal, Terry Ann, and Swad.
Hi. Yeah, thank you, Margaret, for that. I think the presentation was really powerful and moving and inspiring. I think it reminded me of this proverb that I have here, that it's a gypsy proverb that says, children will tell you what they do, adults what they think, and older people what they've seen and heard. And I think in this work, it's oftentimes, it seems that, there's always a big push to do action, to show things. But I think it's also equally as valid to spend time to really just learn and to hear and to really know what is happening. I think oftentimes we sort of diminish that as it's not as valuable or as needed, but it definitely is a very integral part. And so I think saying the saying, I don't know, is just as powerful as saying, I think there is something further to learn here. And so I think that's something I really took away from your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Good hire by the health department. Terry Ann, Swan, and then it would normally be you, Margaret, but I'll go to Meredith because I figure, you're good.
I think the thing that resonated, I mean, a lot of things out of that resonated with me, but maybe it's just because I'm super busy at my work right now. The part where you said, like, we are going to get a lot of information, but we may not always act on everything. And it's okay, because it is easy to sit through the presentations and get really like, oh, we need to do something about this. But we only have so many resources. The purview of our committee is, very tight. I mean, there's things we can do and things we can't do. So it's okay to get information and just let it sit, and that to know that sometimes we may not act on it right away.
Yeah. Swad, Meredith, and then Mary.
I did enjoy the Power presentations. It was very useful. And when taking roles, I think you don't have to be in one roles. I feel like we're so fluid in those roles. Sometimes maybe one is more dominant than the other, depending on the specific project we're working on. What I liked and I take away from that is the bag of salt, because even though it's huge, but get to those manageable small part. And I had a hard time, like, 'cause I want to do everything, but ideally, we all can't. So once you get to those manageable part, and you'll see more get stuff done. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Meredith, Mary, and then Lisa.
Yeah, thank you, Margaret, for that presentation. I thought that was really good. What stood out to me is that it almost felt like, and maybe this is just because of where we're at right now, but it almost felt like you were providing this permission to take time to learn, to research, and then think about something before making a decision or taking action. And I think especially in public health over the last 2 years, we've barely been able to come up for air. So it's like the luxury of like being told, like, yes, you can think through this process, you can collect information, you can take your time, was sort of like really kind of shocking to my system today, because I'm like, wow, I haven't done that and I don't know how long. So I guess it brings up a question for me is, are there timelines with this? Are there certain times where we want to say, yes, we should kind of have identified recommendations or actions or end goals by a certain time within this year? I mean, it feels like there's time to do some of that learning and processing and thinking, but just wondering for this group if there's some more concrete deadlines that we want to keep in mind.
Good question. And I also really appreciated how you, as a feeler, grounded so many of your statements and how you feel and how you felt about the presentation. Mary, Lisa, and then Britt.
Margaret, it was a great presentation. And the very last bullet, recognize that a way forward will become apparent, was like a lifeboat for me. Because in these subcommittees, sometimes I feel like I'm adrift on a sea of information, and it's just, there's too much. It's almost unmanageable. And I sort of I can lose faith that we'll find a way and get those grains of salt that we need to funnel out so that we can move forward with an action. So that really was a good life wrapped for me. And I also, as others have mentioned, appreciated the way you recognize the value of each of us, doers, thinkers, analyzers, feelers, and listeners.
Good dinner.
Thank you.
Good dinner, Mom.
Yeah.
Lisa, Britt, and then Babette.
Thanks so much, Margaret. You're a terrific communicator, so that was a nice presentation. The thing that stood out for me is how in any human organization, to get something done, how many pieces and parts and things that you don't even think about are really involved. And so it was good for me to step aside and say, yes, and it's all important. So there's so many pieces and parts, and you wonder how we ever started the whole country of the United States of America. What a challenge it is just to start any new endeavor like that.
That was terrible. That was not the thing you should have said.
Oh.
Why did that happen?
Why did the country happen? Because it took so much effort to get it to this point. I mean, it happened for a number of reasons, for change, for something different, for a better life for people. But maybe I could be educated.
Well, I think this is a place where you can express and we can discuss respectfully if we have differing opinions, but I would definitely underline that word respectfully for the committee, because you're all professionals and this is a public and professional environment. So thank you very much, Lisa. I didn't hear anything problematic in what you said.
I just think just what an effort it is to come together to make change. And Margaret just kind of broke that all down, and I think it just takes so much. And I guess the one building block I guess I would add is I know to make change and to create change, sometimes there has to be a sense of urgency. I do like the fact that we do sometimes need to take a step back and absorb and think. But at times there does have to be a time. I think someone brought up a timeline. So I think sometimes to create change, you do have to have a sense of urgency or a timeline of some sort. And that maybe it was brought out, but that's all I'd add. And I certainly didn't mean to talk out of turn if I did. So that's it. Thank you.
Well, when we get to Alicia,
thanks for that add-on.
Share. I will say, to the point of the timeline, at one point in Margaret's presentation, I literally thought, okay, we've got 2-year terms, a maximum of 3, 11 months per year. So I did do the math on some of that during Margaret's presentation. To those
it's actually not as much time as it sounds like, and when you're in it, it speeds by.
Yes, Britt, you are actually next right now, and then Babette, and then Anna Argan.
Well, look at my timing. I was hearing the salt analogy, but it reminded me of another analogy that I utilize, because I know that during civil uprisings, or how a hospital works, or how anything else that is this larger team effort works, I always have made these analogies of when you look at an analog, making sure I'm doing this right, yep, analog watch or a grandfather clock. Because people tend to minimize their roles if they're not like these, like, I'm the voice, I'm this huge important face on this. But a watch will stop working even if the smallest cog is out of place. So we can never minimize our contributions, our knowledge, our strengths. So it's like people who are thinking and listening, sometimes they're sitting and perseverating on a really good point, and they bring it up at the exact right time because they've been listening and they've been keeping track. And I know that can help balance out doers, because doers can also be impulsive. And that's okay, because sometimes acting on impulse is what we have to do. and being listeners and thinkers, like thinking of this big picture, but sometimes you just get caught with your own cogs turning, and it's like sometimes the doers have to push you out of it. So I look at it as just how a watch works, where it's, you know, the hospital I work at would fall apart if it wasn't for our food service, environmental service, patient transport folks, but it's always like the doctors and nurses, as you know, they should get respect, but being lauded as like the only, like the faces of the heroes. And I really like the building off each other's strengths, because there's no such thing as somebody too small when it comes to these team efforts, committee efforts.
Awesome. Thank you, Brett. Babette, Anna, and then Angelique.
Yeah. Margaret, thank you for putting that presentation together. I thought it was excellent and really helpful. And I guess my takeaways is that our group has, the subcommittee that I'm in, we have jumped into the work. And I think it would be valuable to, you know, kind of think about, okay, what's our roadmap? And talk a little bit about roles. I think those are some really good suggestions. I also made a note in terms of what I would add relative to timeline. So I think several people have mentioned that, but I wonder if it would be helpful to set some general guidelines in terms of here's what the a timeline would be for a subcommittee report out, and then here's what a timeline would be for a full committee approval or coming together around what we'd like to recommend. Having and I would suggest that maybe we all be flexible with that, knowing that some things may take longer, or usually they take longer, but maybe shorter than we anticipate. And then I also just have another question, just for clarity, in terms of what role can Margaret play with the subgroups? You know, what, so we have, you know, realistic expectations around what Margaret's role can be as well.
Those are all fair questions and great thoughts. Thank you, Bella. Got Anna, Angeli, and then Alicia.
Yeah, I appreciated the presentation as well. As Margaret, you were talking about that process of the work and also the idea of building blocks. It made me think about project management and the same concepts being applied to managing a complex project. And I had made that comparison to our subcommittee work, but it makes a lot of sense to me that these are complex topics, as you said. And so breaking them down and building out that roadmap will be really helpful. In terms of roles, I think I would add that that roles can shift, and that's okay too. It can be helpful for people to have an opportunity to move into a role, at least for a little bit, that where they might want to build skills, or for someone who is skilled at a particular role to have an opportunity to do something different. So I'm thinking, for example, of a note taker. Someone might be a good note taker, but that can also be difficult because it can detract from your ability to participate in the conversation. And so it's nice to be able to rotate roles as well. So, you know, good to define roles, but let's not have that be a forever role.
Agreed. Angeli, and then Alicia.
Thanks. This is Anjali. And one thing that I really took away from Margaret's presentation was talking about the arc. And I think Babette was talking about this when she mentioned a roadmap. But just having the end goals in mind can help determine the smaller steps along the way. And I think one thing I also heard you say, Margaret, was that it's okay if those goals shift and change based on learnings over time and remaining flexible, but having those end goals in mind, I think, is important. So I think it's definitely something that I want to get more clarity on amongst the subcommittee that I'm sitting on, and just review those goals with the group so that we can develop some clearer steps along the way. So, yeah.
Nice. Alicia.
Good job, Margaret, today. Always good to see an overview of an initiative, especially as you're starting one up. I think the thing that stuck out the most to me was knowing the people that you work with and understanding what everyone brings to the table, their previous perspectives, their knowledge, their historical backgrounds, who they might know. That all really does help play into sometimes the ease of creating a new initiative or a project, or even finding connectors. Nothing else to add at this time. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, now we're Margaret, I didn't give you a chance to speak on your own presentation. Did you have any last words? That sounds so dark.
I don't need to speak on my own presentation, but what I will say is that it was very helpful in having these different conversations with people, because suddenly alarm bells started going off in my head, and I thought, oh yeah, like, this is a committee of people who previously did not know each other, don't work together, don't have an opportunity to, well, I mean, who does right now? I'm in the office, but I'm in the office alone, so it's like, how do you create that sense of community as well as sense of cohesion, so it's like, I really like that word cohesion, is that, lots of great analogies about it. Like, we can all get into separate boats and we could all be rowing our little hearts out and going nowhere, or going in circles, but it's like, if we could all get in the same boat and we all have a row, or an oar, we can actually start rowing and get better at that, ability to move together. And so I started thinking about, well, what are some of the things that I've learned from the PHAC over the years, in how they kind of organize themselves around different topics, and could we identify some of those like key building blocks? So yeah, I would say thank you to all of you who have asked questions, in the past months, because it's very helpful for creating just sort of a shared understanding.
Agreed. And I thank you one more time, Margaret. We're now moving into Noya's report, the Deputy Commissioner's report.
All right, thank you, Jerome. I transitioned to my vehicle, so sorry, no camera at this point.
Okay.
I guess I don't know where to place this bit of information, so I'll place it right at the beginning. And I submitted my resignation today. I'm going to be taking a job with the Minnesota Department of Health. I can't give more specifics than that because they haven't announced it on their end yet, but my last day of employment with the Minneapolis Health Department will be April 8th. And I have many mixed emotions and feelings about the fact that I'm leaving, but I feel like this is a good move for me and my career. That leaves me about 2 weeks and 3 days to get a whole lot of work done and get all of the wonderful members of my team situated and set on their continued path to do the good work that we've been working on. There are a couple other things that I wanted to mention before I introduce POW officially. One, since 2018, the health department's been actively involved in homeless response, specifically the encampment response. And a little bit over a year ago, we hired our first 2 employees to work on that effort, Bobby and Jose. And then about midway through last year, we added a 3rd temporary person, Marn. And then there is an additional person housed in CPED, Community Planning and Economic Development. Within the next 3 to 4 weeks, that entire team of people will be moving to regulatory services. Over the course of the last 2 years or so, there have been about 6 departments in the city that have been actively involved in the encampment response, and people kind of scattered across, all holding different responsibilities. This move is being made in an effort to centralize a little bit more the homelessness or the encampment response. And why regulatory services? I think mostly because they're willing. There's a group that was willing to take on the centralized effort. They are in the process of hiring a manager. Once that person gets hired, then all of these homeless response coordinators will move to regulatory services. Fortunately for health, we are physically located in the same space as regulatory services in the new building, so our people won't be moving far. They will literally be moving about 10 feet down the hallway. And I have talked to them multiple times, and we'll talk to them more again before the move takes place or before I leave, to ensure that the interests of public health in the response to encampments and homelessness will be maintained, even though they will no longer be housed in the health department. I think if there were a department that it was good for them to move to, it is regulatory services. Saray is the director of regulatory services, and she's a good manager. She's a good director. She has a good on this issue. She has been working with these homeless response coordinators for about the last 8 or 9 months. She's familiar with them and their work. She appreciates that they will need to continue to represent public health interests in the work. And so I think it's a good move. It is a pilot move. So in 6 to 8 months, they will reassess to see if this new centralized approach is working, or if the city will need to consider doing something different in terms of its encampment response. Specific to some of the encampments, we've actually been able to make some headway the last couple weeks in getting more people moved out of the encampments, shutting down a couple encampments, and getting people into shelter or housing. We have closed 2 encampments in the last week. Last week was the North Loop encampment. That was closed last Wednesday, and that's the one that has been presenting the most challenge to the city and the private property owner on whose property this encampment was located. And it was producing the most number of calls to 311, 911, and the most number of emails to all city staff involved in encampment response. So it feels good for us at the city and for the private property owner to have that encampment shut down. Today, this morning, there was an encampment located at 14th Avenue in South Minneapolis that got shut down. That was really about 3 or 4 tents. It wasn't a lot of people. 3 of the 4 people moved into Homeward Bound, which is a shelter run by the American Indian Community Development Corporation, and 1 person who opted to not accept any support from anyone. So that is the encampment. Next, I'll talk a little bit about racism as a public health issue. When POW started a few weeks ago, one of the first things we talked about was this issue. Scheduled a meeting with Ken Smith, who is in the health department, to give me and POW an update on where things were at with the racism as a public health issue. I will admit to the fact that I was a little bit disappointed that more hadn't been done. And I think this is largely driven by the fact that this issue and the work was housed in the Office of Race and Equity, and that program or that department area has largely been vacated in the last year. All of the staff, with the exception of 2, have left that department in the last year, and they're in the process of restaffing it, but that all of those vacancies really contribute to the fact that not a lot of work has been done in the last year. So one of the first steps that we're taking is we're going to be meeting with Councilmember Jenkins, Powell, myself, and Heidi, the commissioner, to get a refresher or a reminder on her perspective as to why she originally authored the declaration and what her hopes and desires were in authoring that declaration. So we will get caught up, and then the Office of Race and Equity does have a new director that is starting next week. And so then we will reconnect with them as a department and make some plans on how they and we as the health department can move forward on this particular issue. So I am happy that you all as a Public Health Advisory Committee have named this as one of your priority areas, because I think your support will be really important in helping to move this issue forward. And with that, that's really all I have to share this month, but I do want to officially introduce Powell to you. He started, I think it was 3 weeks ago, February 28th. He's been a little bit baptism by fire, learning a lot of information, meeting with a lot of people, getting several large projects handed over to him. And we're excited to have him on board. He's already demonstrated to me that he knows what he's doing, and he will be able to move this work forward even after I leave the health department. And so I look forward to what he's going to be able to do and help the health department do in terms of health equity. And so with that, I will hand it over to Pau to do a little bit more of a self-introduction.
Hi, thank you, Nora, for that wonderful introduction for me. Again, hi, everyone. My name is Pau. My pronouns are he, him, his. And I was born and grew up in the Twin Cities. And so I've experienced firsthand and really I'm familiar with what it's like to grow up in the Twin Cities, especially as a person of color. And so I really understand deeply and personally the systemic inequitable and non-inclusive programs, policies, services, and mindsets that exist here that really creates challenges and barriers. And so my journey towards this position was really been one of continuously learning, as we had been talking in this meeting, of really learning, even though I encountered these many of the times, I never really had the words or the terms, and they were just normal daily occurrences in my life. And that I thought this was how it just is, and you just continue going forward. And so I've always engaged in continuous learning and working with diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so some of my past work was that I've worked with large nonprofit organizations such as Wilder, working with programs whose purpose and mission is dedicated towards servicing underrepresented and underserved communities, and working with universities to really change, working with staff to change their approaches in terms of these work and initiatives. And so really diversity, equity, inclusion has been my life and has been something I've worked towards in my whole career. And I'm really excited to be in this position, especially after COVID, which really, pushed to the forefront of health equity. And I think that has something that has always been present, but has always been usually pushed to the back burner until COVID really bring it to light and really prioritizing that this isn't a topic we can push back anymore, and that we really need to address and recognize it for what it is and that it's happening, and that we need to address it and do something about it. So yeah, I'm happy to be here working with the health department as the health equity manager and working to just create more equity and equitable lens and initiatives in all the ways that is needed.
Well, welcome. A wonderful introduction. I think I heard you'd only been here for 3 weeks, so we won't grill you. Yeah. But, you'll be invited back in a few months. So very much welcome. Were there any questions? Light intro, only been here for 3 weeks. Questions for Pal?
Oh, I just want to say welcome aboard, and I hope you join us in more meetings because I would love to hear more of your perspective.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
Okay, seeing no more hands, this was a bittersweet deputy commissioner's report. And
I can also read what I put in the chat. Sorry, because I realized like Noya was driving after I wrote it. Noya,
sure.
with congratulations on your next steps. However, this of course does feel like a loss for Minneapolis, but the state is definitely lucky to have a powerhouse such as you. So it's not goodbye. We'll chat again in a different way soon.
Well, with that, I do believe, without too much discussion, I'm pretty sure I can get someone to make a motion that the PHAC author a letter of gratitude to Noya for her work. Britt, would you mind making that motion?
I would love to make the motion that we author a letter of gratitude to Noya for her work. And yeah, like I've sat in meetings with Noya before joining this committee and have had really great, thoughtful discussions about culturally competent responses and humane responses to folks living in encampments. And I have really appreciated her intelligence, her resourcefulness, and her compassion in this role. So yeah, absolutely. Hopefully somebody wants to give it a second.
I'll second it.
Hattie, that was Babette who seconded. Is there any discussion? Because I believe that Hattie will have to call the roll in order for us to move forward on this letter. Again, this would just be authorization to draft a letter. We'd also have to bring it back to the committee and get everyone to sign off. So we might not make it before that date in April. It might come a little late. So leave your forwarding address, Noya. Is there any discussion? Otherwise, Hattie, I would appreciate you calling the roll on this one.
Darianne Jones,
Yes.
Mary Pike,
Yes.
Kozar, Lisa Nakotra,
Yes.
Anna Arkin,
Yes.
Alicia Jackson,
Yes.
Jerome Evans,
Yes.
Andrew Crook, Rick Culp,
Absolutely, yes.
Suad Salad,
Yes, for me.
Meredith Martinez,
Yes.
Twee Kim,
Yes.
Babette Apland,
Enthusiastically, yes.
and Jalay Punjabi.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, that's been approved.
Wonderful. And while I've got you here, is the clerk going to be okay with that? Is there anything we need to do to avoid yet another slap on the wrist? Okay, wonderful. Thank you, Noya.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you all so much. As some of you might know, I first was a member of the Public Health Advisory Committee back in the early 2000s. And that wasn't my first contact with the Minneapolis Health Department, but that was my first deeper dive into the work of the department, and made it more meaningful to be able to join the health department as a staff person 4 years ago. So I really do place a lot of value in you as a group and you individually to all that you do to support the health department. So thank you all. I really appreciate the gesture. It means a lot.
Well earned. Well earned. Okay. Oh, Margaret, you got the look on your face.
I do.
Yep.
We've maybe had too many meetings together, Jerome, where it's like, yeah, the look. I do think that it would be helpful to have a couple people volunteer to help draft this letter. So it really, yeah, it just would be meaningful for the PHAC to help, craft it. And then we'll be able to bring a draft back and have people look at it and provide feedback. Britt, I see your hand up.
Well, I'm actually being really careful about what extra I take on, just with, you know, my own precarious mental health. But one suggestion, oh no, I don't bow out. We miss you already. One suggestion I can think of is emailing out a prompt of to the PHAC members, current, like present and past, and kind of just getting a couple blips from everybody and then kind of formulating it all into a letter of gratitude, because I know that a lot of us have different lengths of time of knowing Noya and different types of work that we've done with her that have created meaning in our relationship with her.
It's an excellent thought. Thank you, Brett.
And then I'll let somebody who's a doer write the letter.
I do believe that I saw drafting and editing on one of the slides that Margaret
And
presented.
writing. Mhm. But that's a really good suggestion, Britt, and I appreciate your comment about people know Noya in different ways, you know, and in different interactions and for different lengths of time. And so, yeah, I will definitely reach back into some rosters of previous PHAC committees members that would have been a part of you know, I think of like the lead work, you know, especially, and other initiatives, you know, that we've undertaken since the time that she's been here with us.
Okay, my mouse cursor has fallen on the name Mary Pike. I wonder, Mary, would you be open to helping with the letter?
Jerome, I have to say no at this time. Sorry.
It's okay. It's okay. My mouse just happened to fall on your name. No worries.
Well, I think the place to start is to send out the prompt. And so, you know, I'll do that. Yep, probably sometime next week.
Then we can see if one of the doers wants to move forward after we collect all of these with writing it.
Absolutely.
Use people's strengths.
Amen to that.
All right, then. I think I can put this question to the committee. We have 37 scheduled minutes until I have to let you go. I could let you go early, or you can break into subcommittees for the balance of our time. What say you?
Didn't we move for the agenda to have some, I mean, a half hour, I know is not a whole lot of time basically, but I know it was part of the agenda to break into subcommittees. And I have things about drugs that I want to talk about.
Okay.
But I'm also fine with taking a couple-minute break while the rooms get set up. But leave it to I would say, let's take a vote. If anybody has any objection to doing anything subcommittee-wise, please, of course, say so, because I don't want to speak for anybody else, especially if you're trying to have your evening back.
Sure, we'll give everyone a moment. If no one speaks up against breaking into subcommittee work, then we will take that break. That's a good suggestion. And then do you believe that we should have a report back given the short amount of time that we have, or should we let people break from their subcommittees?
Should we look at like 20, 25 minutes of subcommittee stuff and then come back and try to keep it brief?
Okay.
Yeah, or this is Babette, given the shortness of time, and I think given the presentation, that there may be some discussion from that presentation. So I'm wondering if a report out would really be necessary.
I think maybe not so much as a report out, but just coming back in so that if there's any particular announcements, and adjourn. So we do have to adjourn.
And then if anybody
Perfect.
needs to like leave right at 8, then we can sacrifice one person from each subcommittee to talk and get it on the record.
That sounds great.
Oh, funny.
I meant it in a good way.
So Hattie, if we take like a 2-minute break, what information can I provide to you for subcommittees?
If they're the same as last month, nothing. They're all set up.
Oh, fantastic.
Well, I'm still on the drugs one, but I know that I think I don't have at least one of my members. I might just be talking to myself.
I'll join you.
Cool.
I'm in that group, Britt. So
Oh yeah. All right, Meredith.
You can talk
I'll
to me
be
about,
there too, Britt. It's Mary. I'll be there.
yeah, we can talk about drugs.
I love talking about drugs. I do it all day. I do it all day, all night. And because I had sent some stuff to Heidi about like a different trend and concern. So see you in a couple minutes.
Okay, let's do the breakout and then convene at your leisure, subcommittees.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah.
So Margaret, are we coming back after?
Yes. Yeah. So we'll come back. Yeah, like maybe 5 minutes until.
Lisa, what group are you in?
Yeah, I don't know where to go here.
Lisa, it's Mary. I think you're in food, drink, and medicine.
Okay, how do I go there? Thank you. That's where I am.
I'll send you.
I'm not sure how to get there.
It'll just beam you there. Here in a minute, you'll just show up there.
Okay.
This is Anjali. Can you send me to racism as a public health crisis?
Yep.
Thank you.
Mary, are you back in here?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can. I sent you to a room, but you're back.
Okay.
Okay. This is Swat. I don't know if I'm in the right room.
No,
Or-
but so were you in excuse me, my throat's so scratchy tonight. Were you in racism as a public health issue last time?
No, I was in something about mental health.
Oh, environmental and mental health. Yeah, I see you. Oh, okay. Let me see. It looks like you're
Yeah, I'm
logged
supposed to be in
in.
that one too, Hattie. I
Who's
haven't been
that?
in yet. It's
Who's
Terry Ann.
Terry Ann.
Hattie,
Here's a
I'm sorry. Hattie, when I try to join the room, I get a message saying the URL is incorrect. You know what? I'm in the wrong group. Not that you're not lovely.
Okay, it's working on sending some other folks out, so just give it a minute here.
Okay.
This is Babette. I'm not sure what room I'm in.
You're not in
But-
any
but-
room right now.
Yeah,
You're still in the
I'm
main
sorry.
room.
We're
All right.
supposed to be
I'm
in
in-
racism
I'm in-
as a public health crisis.
Yeah, I'm in racism as well.
And me too. This is Anna.
This is Lisa. I think I'm in the wrong room.
Lisa, I sent you out. What happened when I sent you out? Because
I got a completely dark screen and then I joined I signed out and I joined back in again and I wound up in this room. So
Okay, let me
I
see
don't
if
know
I
where to
can
go.
send
I'm
you
sorry.
back. That's okay. Alicia and Twee, where would you like to go?
I'm in racism as a public health crisis. That's my group.
Okay.
I'm in environmental
Okay.
health.
And Lisa, you were in food and drink. And I Twee's in environmental.
Yes.
Beaming you guys over now, Twee and Alicia.
Thanks.
Hey, Hattie, it's Terry Ann. Can you move me back to my room?
What's your room?
It's the mental health room. Something weird is going on. The screen was just black and I had no controls. So I logged out and I'm back.
Oh,
That's what somebody else said too.
I did.
Yeah, it's been
I
happening
did
to a couple people. Yeah.
I
Yeah,
did the same thing.
I'm having trouble too, Hattie. It's Mary.
It looks like Alicia's back too.
I am. Yeah, it did not go. Join breakout room.
Yeah, hit that button. Mary, do you have a join breakout room? Because you're
Yes,
already
but when I go there, I get a message saying that the URL is incorrect.
Hey Hattie, I'm back.
Mm-hmm.
It sent me to the room and I just saw black and I could not unmute or hear anything. So I had to like close out of Teams altogether.
Okay. And which room were you going in?
Environmental.
Environmental?
Yep.
Hello?
Hi, Hattie. Still not in the room.
Hattie,
Yes, ma'am.
this is Babette. My screen went black and I could hear my two of my fellow members speaking, but they could not see or hear me, and I didn't have like any controls. I couldn't unmute or do anything. So I don't know if that description is helpful to you.
Okay, let's try one more time. I don't know why you guys are getting bounced back. I have no idea.
They don't want us to be great.
Excuse me. Twee, do you have a button that says join your breakout room?
Yes, it says join room.
Try that again.
Okay.
How about you, Alicia? Do you have that button too?
I don't have that button right now.
You don't have that. Okay. And you were in racism, right?
Correct.
So let's try to beam you over again. Mary, I don't remember. Do you have that button?
I do, Hattie, but when I click on it, as it says, sorry, it looks like the URL is incorrect.
Try leaving and coming back one more time.
I've tried it about 6 times, but I'll keep trying. Hattie.
You back already?
Yes, I've tried about, I don't know, 10 times by now. It just says, looks like the URL is incorrect.
I'm gonna try again. 'Cause I
Thank
don't know
you.
what else to try. It just keeps bouncing you back.
Yes, I keep trying to join, and then it tells me your URL is incorrect. Please check it, or something like that. And then I have to rejoin you because I'm not getting to the breakout room.
Are you joined in the meeting 2 different ways?
I don't think so. I mean, how would I be joined 2 different ways?
Let me see. I thought I saw you in the list twice.
Okay. Do you want me to
Keeps telling me it keeps telling me you're not in the meeting.
Okay, do you want me to completely log out and come back in?
I guess because I don't know what else. Yeah, because it tells me you're not even in the meeting for some reason.
All right, I'm going to quit Microsoft Teams and log back in with that link you sent me. Thank you very much.
Okay, well, we'll try it because I don't know what else to try. Anna, are you in this room too? Okay, there you are. It still tells me you're not in a meeting. And I have you in here twice too, again. So let me assign the other login I have on you.
Thanks, Hattie. I do appreciate this.
It's really strange why you're in here twice. Because 2 different participants. Oh, it just keeps kicking you out. Did you get the same message?
Yes. Looks like the URL is incorrect. Please check and try again. Well, Hattie, I don't know what's going on. I am using a booster to strengthen the internet connection. I don't know if that's making a difference.
It shouldn't make a difference, but there is a reason why it's telling me you're not even in the meeting. So I'll have to ask IT for some possible reasons why this could happen.
Okay.
And I'll let you know, see what they say of what.
All right. Well, Hattie, I'm going
to
to sign off.
Okay.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry that this
I'm
is
sorry
working
too.
out. So
Yeah,
thanks,
look for a
Hattie.
couple emails from me before the next meeting.
Thank you, Hattie. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye, Mary.
but he doesn't go to gym anymore because of that.
And Swad, just so that you know, we got yanked back into the big room.
Oh, good. Thanks for the heads up because I can't see what's going on.
Yeah.
Oh,
It looks like we're back.
yeah. I don't know if Mary's here. I did get an email from her while we were in the subcommittee meeting, but we were having a really great conversation. I wasn't checking my email, and she was not able to get into the subcommittee.
Yeah, she was not. We'll have to go offline. We'll see what kind of technical issues she's having. It wasn't even recognize her as in the meeting, so I told her I'd work with her before the next meeting and we'll figure it out.
Yeah, we could even do a little practice meeting or something, but we had, people that couldn't unmute. So Twee right now is in that situation. She can't participate because she doesn't have a control. And Terry Ann and Swad couldn't see me, but I could see them. And Swad couldn't even turn on her camera. So it was just like, a few technical glitches, but we managed to have a conversation and a lot of nodding.
Oh, good. Oh, good. Well, I don't know if we need to do a formal report back. Were there any questions raised during your subcommittee meetings or any points of insight that you want to share with the groups over the last 3 minutes of our time together this month? I can tell you the group I was in started to coalesce, we'll say. I think that word was used a bit, around Medicaid, possibility of ARP funding, and we'll see where that takes us. There was some Googling happening, but we didn't have time to share our screens or share articles.
And I think we also discussed like where things are at with the Sackler settlement dollars. And my hope too is that if we look at the treatment and recovery industry, that those dollars can be used for non-opioid issues, considering the other information I was sharing with y'all about some non-opioid or fentanyl contamination related concerns with our market.
What was going on in your group, Margaret?
We spent a little time kind of talking about that first question, is that it's like, what best describes you? How do you approach work? And then the thing that we landed on the end was at our next subcommittee time, we're going to spend a little time looking at the different bullet points that were underneath environment and mental health, because we've talked mostly about mental health, but we want to take a look at some of those other bullet points and do that next slide, which is how do you understand this concept, and see if there are some other places that we could put some energy.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And then anyone from the Racism as a Public Health Subcommittee? Public Health Crisis. Don't forget the crisis.
This is
Please
go ahead.
Oh, sure. We spent our time just getting to know one another a little bit better and learning about each other's backgrounds, which I think it was great to take the time to do that.
Good use of 25 minutes or so.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, well, I think we were late last time. So if you have any last minute announcements, Margaret. Okay. Any last minute announcements from anyone else? Because I'd love to give you, I was going to give you a minute back, but now we're just on time. Seeing none, we are adjourned. Great work, everybody.
Great to be with all of you.
Indeed.